Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started then. In case there's some others may come in, I don't know. We're going to pick up where we left off last month, dealing with the gospel in the stars. And this will be part 2 of that particular lecture.
Okay, you there, Eddie?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. All right, let's get into defining the definitions of what is deemed to be the horoscope. And the word horoscope is derived from the Greek word horos, or hooray, speaking of the decan of heaven's clock that rises on the horizon to declare life's mysteries and future events. Horoscope from the Greek literally means looking at the hour, observer of time. The word zodiac itself is from the Greek, but from a primitive root through the Hebrew sodi, which in Sanskrit means a way. So zodiac literally means a way. Its etymology has no connection with living creatures, but denotes a way or a step, and is used of the way or path in which the sun appears to move among the stars in the course of the year. And the key word is depending upon one's position, the appearance. So as you are standing on the earth, where you're positioned on the earth determines your perception of what that zodiac is. Since ancient times, it was a poem prescribed that represented the aspects of the zodiac and the order in which they appear. The poem went the ram, the bull, the heavenly twin, and of course that would be Gemini, and next the crab, the lion sign, which is Leo, the virgin, Virgo, and the scales, Libra, the scorpion, archer, and seagull, the man that carries the water pot, and fish with glittering scales. That was predominantly how people related to the order of the zodiac in ancient times. Now, one of my focuses is the biblical text, because most people, most of us, were primarily raised in the church and indoctrinated with religious beliefs that defy logic, or we were giving the biblical text as literal, and in fact it was not intended to be interpreted as literal. That's why when people would read, and they read their Bible, a lot of stuff just didn't make sense. And the reason it didn't make sense because there was intentional contradictions in the biblical text, and the contradictions were placed there to illustrate the fact that this was not to be taken literal, so that you'd have contradicting passages in the Bible that made it difficult for people to comprehend what it was talking about without a knowledge of the history or the foundation from which it came. So in Genesis 3 and 15, and of course the word Genesis means beginning or the origin, related back to being in the gene, and everything begins in the gene. So Genesis 3:15 makes a profound statement when it says, "And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. It shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. So when you read that particular passage or you read that verse, the thing that jumps out for me is the enmity, which is open warfare, basically, what the word means or implies. And this statement is made primarily to the woman after the alleged fall of man or after the alleged sin in the Garden of Eden by the serpent who deceived the woman. But the thing is between thou seed and her seed. Now, a woman doesn't have seed. See, that jumps off right at the back. Between thou seed and her seed, a woman doesn't have seed. So this can't mean what historical people have thought that it meant. Okay? Because primarily the feminine, the female is an incubator, for lack of a better term. Whatever you give her, she takes and multiplies. The male provides the seed, the female provides the egg to fertilize the seed, or the seed fertilizes the egg. But anyway, so that passage alone lets you know that this can't be a literal statement because it contradicts natural order. All right? And it shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. So we're speaking in terms of, for lack of a better term, a prophetic, something that is going to happen, something that is about to happen in the future to represent the serpent head being bruised. So the Sphinx, which represents a female head with a male body, a lion's body, I'm sorry. So the Sphinx between uniting the beginning and the end of the Zodiac. The Sphinx is a figure with the head of a woman and the body of a lion. What is this but a never-ceasing monitor telling us to begin with Virgo and to end with Leo? So in the whole story of Jesus, we begin the story in Virgo, okay, and end the story in Leo. That's the whole. What's the word I'm looking for? That's the whole story written in the stars, or written in what is the term astro-theology. And the entire story of Jesus' birth, death, the second coming, all of that is a part of astro-theology. It is a doctrine, it is a teaching that is ancient, that deals with what's happened in the heavens. So, in the Gospel of Virgo, in Haggai, the book of Old Testament book, chapter 2, verse 6 through 7, you have another prophetic statement. For thus saith the Lord of hosts, yet once it is a little while, and I will shake the heavens, and the earth, and the sea, and the dry land. And I will shake all nations, and the desire of all nations shall come. And I will fill this house with glory, saith the Lord of hosts. Now, in verse 7 is another prophetic statement, because it's still talking about the astrotheology, or the gospel and the stars. When it says in verse 7, I will shake all nations, and the desire of all nations shall come. So what was the desire of all nations? And the desire of all nations, as you see in the illustration, was in fact Virgo. A virgin gives birth to a male child, and this male child will usher in or bring about peace and harmony. And that was known as the desire of all nations. The ancient Egyptians' name for this constellation was Shanu, the desired son. So, since time long ago, men have always observed stars. As a matter of fact, there were people whose primary responsibility and obligation from the observatory that we talked about last week was simply to keep watch over the observation of what was happening in the heavens. Because what was happening in the heavens literally had an effect upon what was happening in the earth. All right. So in the story of Jesus, you have the coming of the Christ, born of the Virgin. This whole story is written in the heavens, and it happens in the sign of Virgo, the Virgin. And it deals with the suffering of Christ, the prophecy of the promised seed of the woman, Virgo, the Virgin, a woman bearing a branch in her right hand and an ear of corn in her left. That was the astrological drawing of Virgo, the promised seed of the woman. Within Virgo, you have the 3 decades, and all 12 of the Zodiac signs are composed of the constellation itself, but within that constellation there are 3 sub-constellations, or 3 faces within that particular sign. So Virgo had within it the constellation of Coma, which meant the desire, the woman and child, the desire of all nations. Then you have the constellation of Centaurus, the Centaurus with 2 natures, holding the spear, piercing a victim, the despised sin offering. Okay. Now, Centaurus also represented, for those on the earth, Centaurus represented the duality. The duality within our nature. We have the nature to do good, and we also have the nature to do evil. Or we have positive, we have negative. We have polarity that exists within us. Okay. So Centaurus is the despised sin offering. And then you have the constellation of Boots, which is a man walking, bearing a branch called Octos, meaning the same. He cometh. Okay. So those were the 3 decans of Virgo. And literally, the story of Jesus deals with the aspect of what happens in the heavens, in the sky, what takes place daily, what takes place annually, what takes place always. It is a constant thing that happens in the sky. Right. So in Genesis 1 and 4, it says, "And God said, Let there be light in the firmament of the heavens, to divide the day from the night. Let them be for signs and for seasons, appointed times, set times, days, and for days and years." So even in the creation story, it gives you the purpose for which the life exists in the heavens. And one of those purposes was to divide the day from the night, where we talk about the sun, the greater light, the light of the day, the light that every eye can see, that the light that walks on the waters. But they're there for signs and for seasons, for years and days. They are indicators of time. They are representative of the cycle of life: winter, spring, summer, and fall. Okay. The constellations are life's prophets that never lie. They tell and retell the story of the Messiah and everything in the universe again and again in different ways. Libra through lupus is showing us the work of the Messiah and also the energy that's working in all entities on the path of light and enlightenment. So literally what it represents is that the stories are heavenly stories, but the heavenly stories also occur within the physical body or the mind of the masses on earth, and especially those who seek the higher knowledge or seek to elevate themselves. In Isaiah chapter 7, verse 14 through 15, and on the right of the screen, the image that you see is the original drawing of coma. Which was known as the desire of all nations. And in that you see the virgin holding the coin to you, Virgo, to your right on that end. You can see the corn stalk in her hand. And then you see above that you see the constellation of Leo, also major, to the left top. Boots at the bottom. And then you have what is not historically been known as the Madonna and Child. Okay. But in Isaiah chapter 14, or chapter 7, I'm sorry, verses 14 through 15, therefore the Lord himself shall give you a sign. Behold, a virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel. Butter and honey shall he eat, but he may know to refuse the evil and choose the good. Now, historically, this has been used by the church to prophesy, or to say that Jesus was prophesied to come long before to redeem mankind from his sin. And so you have the expression, a virgin conceived, bear a son, and call his name Emmanuel, which literally means God with us or God in us. But when you get to verse 15, you never hear them quote verse 15. And this is what I call known as export, what's the word I'm looking for? Basically, I can't remember the word right now. But when you extract from the text a particular scripture means, then you literally take the scripture out of its context in order to paint the perspective or shape the minds of the people in a way in which you want them to believe. And that's what the church has done. So when they quote Isaiah, they only quote verse 14. They never go to verse 15. It says, butter and honey shall he eat, that he may know to refuse the evil and choose the good. Now, you never heard, and you never will, anyone speak concerning the diet that Jesus had. We know that it wasn't butter and honey. Who eats butter and honey as a diet? And literally speaking, the two don't even mix. So the reference has to do with something else and not necessarily what we have been told it means. But the prophecy relates to the second decan of Virgo, which is called coma. And this is the drawing of Virgo. This is the prophetic announcement which the revelation in the heavens that is designed to unfold and develop. It lies at the root of all the ancient traditions and mythology, which are now simply the perversion and corruption of primitive truth. Virgo is represented as a woman with a branch in her right and some ears of corn in her left hand, thus giving a twofold testimony of the coming one. The name of this sign in the Hebrew is Bethula, which means a virgin, and in the Arabic, a branch. The two words are connected, as in Latin, Virgo, which means a virgin, and Virga, which means a branch. And this is taken from the Latin Vulgate. And not many people know that the King James Version was never translated from an original text at all. And for that reason, it is the King James Version, because it wasn't taken from actual manuscripts at all, but it was translated from the Latin Vulgate, or what at that time was known as the Bishop's Bible, the Great Bible. Another name is Sambur, which is Arabic, and that speaks of your corn. All right, in this relief drawing, you have from the ancient Egyptians, okay? And it deals with the Sphinx as a figure with the head of a woman and the body of a lion. What is this but another? I've already done telling us to begin with Virgo and to end with Leo. Right? If you look at the relief drawing, then you see on your left the lion, which represents Leo. Then you see on your right the prophecy, the snake that you see, the core there. Okay? And then you have above that the Sphinx. But you have a rip in the drawing. And the rip is there to show that the break exists, and that would be a uniting that would take place through the seed of the woman. We read, when in the West, when we read from left to right. Many ancient cultures read from right to left. So the interpretation goes from right to left. Does that make sense? Y'all see here? Hello?
Yeah.
Yes, right.
Oh, okay. I thought y'all wouldn't sleep on me.
Get off mute.
Huh? All right. Looking at the biblical text, going to John chapter 14, verse 6 through 9. When it says, Jesus said unto him, I am the way. He literally was saying, I am the Zodiac. Because that's what the word meant in the ancient times. The path. The way. And the path was the sun's movement through the heavens, entering the houses of the Zodiac. So he could literally say, I am the Zodiac. I am the sun. Okay? There's the truth and the light. No man cometh unto the Father but by me. Then in verse 7, if you had known me, you should have known my Father also. And from henceforth ye know him and have seen him. Philip said unto him, Lord, show us the Father, and it sufficeth us. Jesus said unto him, have I been so long with you, and yet hast thou not known me? He that hath seen me has seen the Father. And how sayest thou then, show us the Father? So again, the masses of people did not comprehend what his message was or what he was saying. And many times they misinterpreted it, just as it is today. Because now we put the spin on it and use Jesus as the way to being saved. In one sense, that's true. In another sense, it's not true, because if you take it literally and try to apply it on the earth, it don't work. But if you apply it to the heavens, it works over and over again, because it's the same story reoccurring without failure. Okay. And in Psalms 147 in verse 4, he telleth the number of the stars, he calleth them by their name. And by the way, the word there is not in the original text at all. It doesn't appear in the original text. That was inserted by the translator. So if we read it correctly, it would say, he telleth the number of stars, he calleth them all by name. So every star has a name, just as it was then and even today. Even in the realm of science, when they study the stars, or whenever they come across a new star, that star gets a name. Mm-hmm. In Romans chapter 1, verses 18 through 32, okay, it deals with kind of the state of man when it speaks for the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who hold the truth in unrighteousness, because that which may be known of God is manifest in them, for God has shown it unto them. Okay, what are we talking about? What are we talking about?
You're talking about stars, ain't you?
Huh?
You're talking about stars?
Well, in a sense, but what is the wrath of God?
You said, what is the wrath of God?
Yeah. I mean, we know that wrath means anger, displeasure. But when you say it's revealed from heaven, what are we talking about now? Mm-hmm. We're talking about what's happened. We're talking about a story of what takes place in the heavens that's told over and over again,
It's a cycle.
Exactly. It's a cycle. And when I look at ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, who hold the truth in unrightness. In other words, put it this way, to hold the truth in unrightness. That's why I'm enunciating the unrightness, because it deals with a mental state of mind. In Buddhism, they speak of the 7 paths of righteousness, and all deals with a state of mental capacity or a state of mind. Mm-hmm. So Romans 1 deals with a state of mind. Then it says, because that which may be known of God is manifest in them. For God has showed it unto them. In other words, going right back to the heavens. Because what is happening in the heavens, the cycle that occurs in the heavens, is the exact same cycle that occurs on the earth. The mental state of mankind. So you can't say, I didn't know, because it's manifest. It's shown in the heavens. Then verse 20, for the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. Most animals in nature pay close observation and attention to their surroundings or to their environment, because most understand that their life depends upon it. But due to religion, the masses of people have been dumbed down, so they have no clue as to what's really going on around them. All right, verse 21. Because that when they knew God, they glorified him not as God, neither were thankful, but became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish heart was darkened. Then it goes, professing themselves to be wise, they became fools, and changed the glory of the uncorruptible God into an image made like to corruptible man, and to birds and four-feeted beasts and creeping things. Wherefore God gave them up to uncleanness, and through the lust of their own hearts dishonor their own bodies between themselves. Verse 25, who changed the truth of God into a lie, and worship and serve the creature more than the Creator, who is blessed forever. And what is the Creator's name? Amen. And that's clear right there in verse 25, when it says, who changed the truth of God into a lie, and worship and serve the creature more than the Creator. who is blessed forever. Amen. And the use of the term amen was not haphazardly put there, because it identifies what at that particular time was known to be the Creator in that particular cultural setting. And the name was Amen. And if you look into Revelation, and you'll find the exact same thing when it talks about Jesus sitting on the throne. The first and the last Amen. But we'd rather use the word Amen in church without a knowledge and understanding of what the term even means. Because that term Amen was an ancient Egyptian god, referred to as Amen, Aman, Amun-Ra, depending on the culture or the city in which you were residing in.
Mr. Eddie.
Yeah.
Even with that point, Revelation 3:14 said it was the beginning unto the church of Laodiceans, write these things, saith the Amen.
That's correct.
True witness, the beginning of the creation of God.
That's correct. That's correct. But you never hear the church make that known that that's who we're talking about, Amun-Ra. And yet it's written clearly in the text.
What was that verse again?
Revelation 3:15.
Revelations 3:14.
Oh, 14, okay.
Yes.
Thank
And without, looking at the biology of the biblical text, just sticking right now as we are to the astrotheology of it, okay? Because not only did it have astrotheological application, it also had biological application or psychic application. Because just as but just as Genesis points out that the lights in the firmament were for signs and for seasons, even in the physiology of our being, we experience the exact cycle of life. We go through psychological winter, spring, summer, and fall. The duration of those seasons may vary, as well as when those seasons come up on us individually. But at the same time, in our personal lives, we experience the cycle of life. It happens in our physical body. It happens in our mental body. Sometimes we're in the dead of winter. Sometimes we're in the spring. Sometimes we're in the fall. Sometimes we're in the summer. So this is where the natural laws come into play, where we're able to look at our season that we're in and look at the natural law, or the law of cause and effect. and ask the question, why am I in this season? Because if we can address the cause of that season, we can alter that season. Okay. Then in verse 27, and likewise also the men, leaving the natural use of the woman, burned in their lust one toward another, men with men, working that which is unseemly, and receiving in themselves that recompense of their error which was meet. And verse 27 really points to a reality, especially here in the West right now, with the LGBT movement. It's never a question of right or wrong. It's never a question of sin. That has nothing to do with it. That's what man wants you to view it as. But it's a question of natural and unnatural.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
There's a natural use of the woman to bear fruit. It ain't natural for men to bear fruit. That's all it is. It's just it's not a question of right or wrong. It's not a question of a good, bad. None of that. This is a question of the fact that it goes against the natural order.
Exactly.
That's it. And then in verse 28, and even as they did not like to retain God in their, what? Knowledge. Not in our emotion.
Right.
To know God is to have knowledge. And then the second part of that says, God gave them over to a reprobate mind. And the word reprobate has reference to a mind without hope of redemption. A mind that is so locked where it's at that you can't penetrate it. So when we talk, when you try and share with people the truth and their refusal to hear that truth, that is known as a reprobate mind. So we end up doing things which are not convenient. And I like the term that it used. We end up doing things that are not convenient as a result of unright thinking, because as a man thinks, so is a man. If your thinking is wrong, your behavior will be wrong. Because the reality is, no one lives by what they believe. People actually live according to how they think. And if your thinking has been programmed, then your behavior will follow the program.
Right.
Since we are in a period right now of the coronavirus, it becomes self-evident that the masses of people have been programmed to operate in fear. So the minute the virus became publicly known on a wide, on a broad scale, people reacted. Because you can structure human behavior, and they understand that. So what did people do? They did not respond according to their belief system. Because if they claim to be Christian and they claim that Jesus and God protected them and no weapon formed against them going to prosper, all this stuff that they say they believe, the proof is in the pudding. They ran on the supermarket. Because we don't live by how we believe or what we believe. We say what we believe, but we live according to how we think. All right. Number 29. Being filled with all unrighteousness, fornication, wickedness, covetousness, lasciviousness, full of envy, murder, debate, deceit, malignity, whisperers, backbiters, haters of God, despised, proud, boasters, inventors of evil things, disobedient to parents. Da, da, da.
But Mr. Ed, all this tie into what you just got through talking about the 7 paths of Buddha: right mindfulness, right view, and right intention.
That's correct. That's correct. And yet, the reality is that because of the programming, the masses of people do not see that Christianity is an amalgamation. Buddhism is taught in the text. Hinduism is taught in the text. Zoroastrianism is taught in the text. Reincarnation is taught in the text. All right. Verse 31. Without understanding, covenant breakers, without natural affection, impalpable, unmerciful, who knowing the judgment of God, that they which commit such things are worthy of death, not only do the same, but have pleasure in doing them that do them. Now, in Job 38, which is a very interesting, because according to the historical placement of the book, Job is considered by Christian authors and historians, to be the oldest book in the Bible. And again, just for it's spelled the same way we say job. So if you said Job 38, then you would still be correct. Because whether you use the term Job or whether you use the term Job, you're still using the same word. And this is why the language of English becomes so deceptive. Because one word can have so many meanings. Or utilized in many different ways. But in Job 38, verse 31 through 36, it asks us a question. And remember the story, I don't know if you recall the story of Job, most of us should recall it because we got indoctrinated with it in the church. But Job was a man that allegedly had 7 children. He was a great man. He was a prosperous man. He was a wealthy man. He was a man with no material wants. And in the story, allegedly, God and the devil had a conversation about him. And the devil says to him, you know, if you remove the hedge from around him, I'll make that boy curse you to your face. And so, according to the story, God took the bet. And he removed the hedge from around him, and Job started losing everything. But in Job 38, in that story, Job begins to question God because he saw himself of a man of great integrity, and the question he was asking, why is all this happening to me? And in Job 38, you get the responses from God concerning him. And he says to him, "Canst thou bind the sweet influences of Pleiades?" Why is that? And Pleiades is the 7 stars.
Yeah.
Okay. But notice what it says, the influences of Pleiades. Why? Because as above, so below. As within, so without. Not only that, but there is no separation. The fact of the matter is, humans on the earth.
Check 1, 2.
Who that check 1, 2? That you will know? All right. Anyway, what I was saying was the influences. Pleiades is the 7 stars, which in the Hebrew is Shema. And these stars have influences. Whether you believe in horoscopes or not, it don't matter. Whether you believe in the Zodiac or not, it don't matter. The reality is that these stars have influences on the earth. So when you look at the concept of man know thyself, they clearly understood that you are a microcosm of the macrocosm. They clearly comprehend and understood that there are forces at work which most people do not understand nor comprehend. There is no separation between the heavens and the earth. And in many ancient cultures, they coined the expression, for instance, in the biblical text, you had the story of Jacob's ladder. And he saw angels descending and ascending to the earth. In the Hopi Indian culture, they speak of a rope that is tied from the heavens to the earth, and people are ascending and descending upon this rope. In the physical term, it speaks of the umbilical cord, okay, in the body that allows for the connection between the mother and the child. But anyway, or the bands of Orion. Verse 32, canst thou bring forth Mazzaroth? Mazzaroth is the Hebrew term for the signs of the Zodiac, or the 12 Zodiacs. Can you bring them forth in his season? Or canst thou guide Arcturus, the bear, with his son? Knowest thou that the ordinance of heaven canst thou set the dominion thereof in the earth? Canst thou lift up thy voice to the clouds, that abundance of rain or waters may cover thee? Canst thou send lightning, that thou may go and say unto thee, here we are? Who has put wisdom in the inward parts, or who has given understanding to the heavens? So when you read this stuff, and meditate on it, then it should bring you back to a clear path of thinking as opposed to being the indoctrination that many churches are giving the masses. For instance, people say things like, name it and claim it. You can have whatever you want to have. And they speak this stuff in terms of material possessions. It's always related to the material.
Right. That's true.
Poverty is a state of mind. All these things sound good, but going back to Buddhism, right mindfulness. Going back to the path of truth. Can I take what you just said to me and it agrees in harmony with nature? It is the reason why indigenous people understood and still to this day understand the simplicity of life and man's place in the universe. I mean, if you are indoctrinated as a believer, as a Christian, and part of your indoctrination speaks to the fact that you can name it and claim it, and all this other foolishness that comes with that, or the manifestation of the secret. And somebody got rich when they put out that video entitled The Secret. They just got rich. And then you had a masses of people who heard that. You can have what you say. All you need to do is think correctly or whatever they put it. But when you take what that is saying and you place it alongside natural law, does it work? Because even in Job 38, does it work? Can thou lift up thy voice to the clouds, verse 34, that abundance of water may cover thee? I don't care how much faith you got. When the missionaries went into Africa and they went to dry areas where there is no rain, and there's still places in which it only rains maybe, 5 to 7 days out of the whole year. Your belief system won't allow you to go out, speak to the clouds, and water comes. You ain't got that kind of power. Then in verse 35, can thou send lightning that they may go and say unto thee, here we are? Verse 36, who has put wisdom in the inward parts? Or who has given understanding to the heart? So literally, verse 38 speaks to the fact that, yes, the things in the heavens affect what happens on the earth. It affects them mentally, and it affects them physically. Okay. All of the Western Zodiac signs have 3 decans, or phases, These are sub-constellations of that particular zodiac. So, in John 14:2, in my Father's house are many mansions. And if it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you, that where I am, ye may be also. I left off that part. I mean, instead of us just going on what we historically have been taught we need to course them.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can get believers, Christians, or whatever you want to call it, to just stop and course them, then they would understand that this is not literal and can't be literal, because it don't make sense. My father's house, many mansions. That's a contradiction right there from the back. Because a house don't have mansions. A mansion may contain a house, but a house does not contain a mansion. A mansion is a big expanse. But in the houses of the Zodiac, it is a big expanse. The universe is an expanse. It goes beyond what we can actually see. So there it's many expansions in the universe. There are galaxies in the universe that we know nothing about, except the one we really live in, and that's the Milky Way galaxy. But the house is one house, the heavens. But in that house, there are many expanses. And then if not so, if not, I would not have told you. And I'm saying it that way because if it were, and so are not a part of the original text. So whenever you start adding in the text what the original did not say, then you are creating a perspective, or you are setting up a train of thought purposely that you want to convey, and not what the text says. For another example would be where the church says, many are called, but few are chosen. And the original text doesn't say that. The original text says, many called, few chosen. Big difference. Because when you stick the word "are" in there, you're saying there are going to be some folks called and some ain't going to be called. That's not what the text says. The text says, many called, few chosen. In other words, all have the call to the knowledge of truth. Few chosen. All right. The 3 decans of Libra are ruled by the moon, Saturn, and Jupiter. The decans rise every 10 days and also mark the hours of the night. This is the celestial clock that keeps perfect time. This is literally how time was developed, with 12 hours of a day and 12 hours of a night. So in John 11:9 it says, Jesus answered, are there not 12 hours in the day? If any man walks in the day, he stumbleth not, because he seeth the light of this world. And that was a dual implication in that state, in the physical sense and in the mental sense. Walking in the light, representing walking in knowledge and in truth, as opposed to walking in the dark, which represents walking in ignorance, superstitious. So each decan of the Zodiac, for instance, in the Zodiac of Virgo, where you have the 3 decans, coma, and in each one of those decans is a period that lasts for 10 days. Well, that sign rises every 10 days. All right. The constellations are called decans. The word means a part, and is used of the three parts into which each sign is divided, each of which is occupied by a sign. So in the house of Libra, you have three decans. Or you can use the term three mansions in that house. Three expanses in that house. 12 zodiacs, 3 decans in each zodiac, or 3 mansions in each house, still makes the statement true. In the Father's house, many mansions. So, in the Old Testament, when they established or wrote about the 12 tribes of Israel, all 12 tribes were symbolic of the zodiac. And when their tents, they were situated in the cardinal positions, north, south, east, and west, based upon the zodiac. And all tribes were representative of each one of the zodiac. So in the north, from northwest to northeast, you had Asher, which represents Sagittarius, Dan, which represented Scorpio, Naphtali, which represented Capricorn. Then in the east, from northeast to southeast, Issachar, which represented Cancer, Judah, the Lions, Leo, Zebulun, Virgo. In the south, you had Simeon, who represented Pisces, Reuben, which represented Aquarius, Gad, which represented Aries, and in the west, you had Ephraim and Manasseh, the bull with 2 horns of Taurus. Benjamin represented Gemini. And then in the center, you had the tribe of Levi. Levi was the balance for Libra. Is my time up, or do I have a few minutes?
Go ahead.
All right. So let's get into the little comprehension and understanding of how the zodiac plays into the biblical story of Jesus. We've already looked at the Gospel of Virgo, which Virgo represented the prophecy of the seed of the woman bruising the heel of the devil, or the serpent, and the representation of the coming of the Messiah, which is displayed in the heavens. Now we get into the second part of that story, the coming. You got his coming in the biblical text. You got the birth of Jesus, the whole story, seeing it. He's born. What's going to happen to him? Well, that plays out in the Gospel of Libra. In the sign Libra, the zodiac Libra, plays out the story of his death. Why Libra? Because Libra represented the balance. The name of the sign, together with his 3 constellations, or decans, and the names of the stars composing them, give the complete picture of the redemption story. The 3 decans of Libra. Crux, which represent the Southern Cross, or the cross endured. lupus, a lepus, a victimus, the victim slain, and also the wolf. Because lupus in the astrological sign represents or is figured as the wolf. Then you got corona, which represents the crown or beauty bestowed. And it's interesting because what is the name of the virus we have today?
Corona.
Yeah. Exactly. Which means beauty. Or the crown.
That's interesting.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And lupus is a disease.
Correct. Which has victims. See, and the reality is there's nothing new under the sun. When companies choose their logos, if you look at the logos of the major corporations, all of them point back to the Zodiacs or aspects of the heavens. Which is an indicator that there are masses of people who know truth and choose to order their path according to the truth that they know, which makes for their success. While at the same time they present the masses with deception and untruth, which makes for their total control and domination. So Libra, the sign, has the complete redemption story. It deals with the aspect of what's going to happen to the Messiah at his arrival after Virgo. Virgo announces it, Virgo brings it forth, but Libra tells lies and what will happen. So you have the constellation of the decans of crooks, the southern cross, lupus, a lepus, the victimus, or the victim slain, and also the wolf, and the corona, the crown, and beauty restored. So in corona, you have the end of the crucifixion story, and Jesus goes back to the Father and is seated at the right hand of the Father in the story. Crown with glory, wisdom, and honor at the first coming. That's what the Zodiac represented. All right. So Libra, the Hebrew name is Mozananiah, the scale, weighing. His name in Arabic is Al-Zuvina, purchase or redemption. In Coptic, it is Lambida, Ambada, station of propitiation from graciousness. And Badia branch, the name by which it has come down to us is the Latin called Libra, which means wave, as used in the Latin Vulgate of Isaiah 49 and verse 12. In Libra, you have the Redeemer's atoning work. Because in Virgo, remember going back to Genesis, as a result of the fall, the prophecy was that the devil's head would be bruised or crushed, that the child would come from a virgin. But in Libra, after the child arrives, this will have to happen. The scales, or historically is known as the scales, especially in Western culture. The scales represented the price deficient balance by the price which covers. So you got the scale going up and down. There is a deficiency. The scales must be weighed. The scales must be balanced in Libra. So in the cross is one methodology for balancing of the scale. The cross must be endured. That there's a price to be paid. Okay. And the price has to be specified as to what it must be. And the price is the cross, as well as there has to be an offering, which is lupus, the victim slain. And after the crucifixion comes the resurrection, the victory. And the victor has to be crowned. All this takes place in Libra. What was the price? Was to be. What that price was to be and how it was to be paid and what was to be the result in the person of the Redeemer is set forth in the decans of Libra. Libra contains 3 bright stars whose names supply us with the whole matter. The brightest in the lower scale is named Duban al Benuba, which means the purchase or price which is deficient. This points to the fact that man has been utterly ruined. He is weighed in the balances and found wanting. This is the composite image from the starlight of the story. And you see clearly the sacrifice of the lupus. The lupus being the animal or the wolf that is being pierced by Centaurus, that is being put to death. And it's interesting because not only is this displayed in the heavens, but if you look above to the right, you see Libra, the constellation, the zodiac sign of Libra. Looking at that particular composite, which was May 26, 1877, position. Look at the, observe the, in the image, observe the character of the wolf, a lupus, the victim, the one that's being slaughtered, being killed, being pierced. How was Jesus crucified? On the cross. And according to the story, was not he pierced in the side?
Yeah.
Just as lupus is being pierced. But notice from the image the happy expression on his face, on the wolf's face. No fight. Total submission, total surrender, laying down my life. That's the biblical story of the crucifixion of Jesus.
So lupus is the victim.
Interesting, isn't it? In the original Libra symbol, before the perversion took place, you see in that drawing it's similar to the other one that you just looked at, or the constellation Libra that you just looked at. The major difference is in the more ancient Arcadians, the months were called after the names of the signs. And the sign of the seventh month is the sign that we now call Libra. The Arcadian name for it was Torku. Tor means mount, and Ku means sacred. This Torku means the sacred mound, or the holy altar. Now, if you notice in that drawing on the left-hand side, it appears to be, not only does it look like a scale in the drawing, but most assuredly, at that particular time, in ancient times, before the corruption took place, it also represented an altar, or an altar of sacrifice, of a holy altar. Not only is the name and its meaning different, as we call it Libra, but the teaching is infinitely greater. If we may believe that the original picture of this sign was not a pair of scales, but the representation of a holy altar, this would agree still better with the three constellations within the Zodiac sign. Because today in Western Zodiac, regarding Libra, we represent Libra as a scale. And yet, before the Western concept existed, yes, it was represented as a scale, but it was drawn differently, because that scale represented historically an altar. Whenever there was a, quote, lack of a better term, a sin, there had to be a sacrifice or an atonement for that sin. So the Libra story deals with the aspect of the atonement, the redemption, making it personal. Whenever we make bad decisions, it costs us something. And in costing us something, there has to be an atonement. Something has to come to set it right. Because as above, so below. So what do we offer for an atonement for our sin? Well, it depends on what the sin is. It depends on what's happening in your life. And let me use a stupid illustration. Let's say you are, I believe, a Christian man or woman, and you're dating a woman, and y'all getting it on. Now, even though you say you believe that you're Christian and you believe this and you believe that, you still engaging in unmarital sex because of your belief system, okay? And all of a sudden, the woman says to the man, I think I might be pregnant. I'm praying that I ain't. So he started praying. Your praying don't alter that sin. There has to be an atonement. There's going to be consequence. It's amazing how beliefs causes people to not think with wisdom and logic.
Mm-hmm.
Get so tied up in the belief. And not only the belief, what makes it more dangerous is because we attach the emotion to the belief.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And now it really complicates. This is why it's so difficult to get people to embrace truth.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yep.
When you attach the emotion, that emotion to it, it's real hard. Because emotion is energy. And it's a powerful energy force. If you could break the emotion, you can make the change. You can make the adjustment. But many times that's not the case. All right. So not only is the name and its meaning different, but the teaching is definitely greater. If we may believe that the original picture design, this would agree still better with the three constellations within this particular zodiac sign. Now, this is the same symbol. Look at it closely, and you can see where it looks like the two are joined together as if it's a table that has a big base at the very top. This is where we get the scales because of the springs that's coming close to it, but it looks like the scale is laying down. In the original, because it represented an altar of sacrifice, whereas in Libra today we still use the concept of the scales, but we see it as imbalance existing, and there has to be something through the redemption process that brings about the restoration of the balancing of the scales. In ancient Kemet, it was clearly depicted as when one dies, then the heart is removed from the victim and weighed in the balance or weighed in the scale against the feather of my eye. To balance the scale. Same concept. And of course, here is the constellation or the decan of Libra, known as Crux, the Southern Cross. And this cross is demonstrated over and over again. But in the constellation of Libra and the decan of the Southern Cross, the cross does not stand erect. The cross is tilted. And the placement of the cross is at the feet of Centaurus. Speaking again of that which is spoken of in Genesis 1:14. The bruising, the redemption, the restoration of balance by way of cross. Any questions thus far? I know I'm way past time. Because it's after 3. So in the first decan of Libra, and this is the actual picture of the ancient Egyptian Zodiac depicting Libra. And in that decan of Libra, the first decan of Libra was called Libra, meaning victory. And it shows the lion with the tongue hanging out of his mouth as if in thirst, and a female figure holding a cup out. Under his forefoot is the hieroglyphic symbol of running water. Of course, water symbolizing purification. This gives you a better depiction of the decans of Libra, of the gospel. Now, the reality of this particular sign as it relates to humanity is going again to the same thing. The wolf, the victim, and the victor are one and the same. In this drawing, you have Centaurus, a head of a man, and body of a horse. So the head strong and body strong. But again, there has to be a death for redemption. And you might say that in Libra you have the reality of the animal nature being terminated so that there may be balance. The animal nature should not overrule the animal nature must commit to the higher nature, the higher nature representing the balance in Centaurus, the head and the body operating as one. And that only happens by way of a death. He was by wicked hands crucified and slain, but he is slain here by the centaur, by himself, to make it perfectly clear that it was his own act without which his death would lose all merit. He uttered those solemn words, I lay down my life for the sheep. Now you get into the aspect of why people in church and why reference in church is made to the sheep and the shepherd. Because a wolf is associated with the disruption and destruction of sheep. So you have in the text of Scripture where you have placed in the words of Jesus, I lay down my life for the sheep. No man taketh it from me, but I lay it down of myself. I have power to lay it down, and I have power to take it again. John 10:15-18. He offered himself without spot to God. He put away sin by the sacrifice of himself. Hebrews 9:11-26. All of this is in the sign of Libra. The wolf lays down his life for the sheep. And the word sheep in ancient times meant what? Y'all remember what I told you? It meant what? Thoughts. That's why when you go to sleep, you ask the question. People talk about, I've been counting my sheep in my sleep. Sheep represent the thoughts. So the wolf dies to protect those thoughts. In other words, many of the thoughts of our thought life, the wolf dies to allow you to have those thought life. All right. In the ancient Zodiac of Dinara in Egypt, he is pictured as a little child with his finger on his lips. And it's called Surah, a lamb. In other pictures, he has beside the horn of a goat on one side of his head. All this pointed to one and the same thing, great fact, the development and explanation of what was meant by the bruising of his head. It meant that this promised seed of the woman should come as a child, that he should suffer and die upon the cross. For Isaiah 53:7 says, he was brought as a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before his shearers is dumb, so he opened not his mouth. Remember also, in the biblical text, when they put in the words of Jesus saying this, except you come as a child, you cannot enter the kingdom of God. All connected. Meaning the same thing. It deals with as above, so below. It deals with the psychology or the psychology, the psyche of the mind. There has to be a mental crucifixion so that there can be a glorious resurrection. And here they are celebrating Passover and Easter at this particular day and time. Today, matter of fact, I think it's Easter. Without a clue that this takes place in the heavens. And it must take place in the mental capacity of every man and woman that desires the higher state of being, or the higher state of consciousness. And yet they go on and they're celebrating the resurrection of a character that did not literally exist, thinking they're doing God a favor, worshiping the creature rather than the creator. All right, John 10, verses 6-18, which deals with the wolf and the sheep story. This parable spoke Jesus unto them, but they understood not what things they were, what he spoke unto them. Again, what are parables? Dark sayings of old. They are stories which have a deeper and hidden truth and meaning. Then said Jesus unto them again, verily, verily, I say unto you, I am the door of the sheep. All that ever came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not hear them. I am the door. By me, if any man enter in, he shall be saved, and shall go in and out and find pasture. The thief cometh not, but to steal, kill, and to destroy. And I am come that they may have life, that they might have life, have it more abundant. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd giveth his life for the sheep. But he that is an hireling, and not the shepherd, whose own the sheep are not, see the wolf cometh, and leaveth the sheep, and fleeth, and the wolf catcheth them, and scattereth the sheep. The hireling fleeth, because he is a hireling, and careth not for the sheep. I am the good shepherd, and know my sheep, and I also know them mine. As the Father knoweth me, even so know I the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. And other sheep I have, which are not of this fold. Them also I must bring, and they shall hear my voice, and they shall be one fold and one shepherd. Therefore does my Father love me, because I lay down my life, that I might take it again. No man take it from me, but I lay it down of myself. I have power to lay it down, and I have power to take it again. This commandment have I received my Father. So the drama in the heavens continues the cycle. The wolf constantly is laying down his life for the sheep. For the battle in the mind is a constant battle. So in conclusion, the atoning work of redemption is complete. Because the last decan of Libra is called Corona, or Corona, which represents the beauty, the crown. And so the work of Jesus, as it is said, is finished. The atoning work of redemption completely finished on Calvary. And Calvary, even in the biblical text, the place was called Calvary, and the place which Jesus was led to was called Golgotha, which literally meant the place of the skull. The place of the skull is your brain, your head. So the crucifixion has to take place in the mind. Without the crucifixion or the sacrifice or the atonement or the redemption of the mind, there is no redemption. But once the crucifixion had occurred, you hear him say, it's finished. The Messiah died, cut off for sin, but not his own. Accomplished is the sacrifice. The great redeeming work is done. So in John 19:30 you have, when Jesus therefore had received the benefit, he said, it is finished. His head, he bowed his head and gave up his ghost. The head of the woman, the body of the lion. He's united the balance between what you would call maybe good nature, bad nature, good and evil, right and wrong, positive and negative, doesn't matter. Both is strong, as symbolized by the Sphinx. The mind is strong, the body is strong. The mind is a warrior. The body is a warrior. Huh?
Quick question.
Yeah.
Looking at the image of the Sphinx there, that's being the head of a woman in the body of a lion.
Yes.
Previously, somewhere I had read or it had said that was the head of a man. Okay, describing that goatee feature under the chin. What is that? What is that? Just to be clear.
I'm not certain of that aspect because historically, even when it came to the images drawn of the Sphinx, yes, many times it was drawn with the body, the head of the man, and the body of the lion. But originally it was designed with the head of the woman and the body of the lion. And I'm not sure of what that other symbol that was added represented. I'm assuming at right now that it probably represented wisdom, or it represented knowledge, because it has the symbolic, or from the looks of it, it has the design and the images of what would be the serpent. And I know that in ancient Egypt, the symbol of the serpent stellar cult, the symbol of the stellar cult for those who were the wise ones, which is what the stellar cult represented, the wise ones of old, that symbol was that of a snake. So I'm pretty sure that design had to do with the headdress.
Okay. We'll do a little bit more research on that. That's confusing, because like I said, when I first came, into knowledge, it was, taught or revealed to me that was, the head of a man and the body of a lion.
Yeah, but not always.
Okay. But I'm learning every day and just trying to, get a balance of, what's the real deal.
Yeah. Well, some of them would represent it with the woman features, then some would represent it with the male features. But remember, the thing is, in ancient Egypt, there was no separation of the sexes, so to speak. Okay. The value of the female was just as great and equal to the value of the male. They did not practice patriarchy. So you ended up with the concept of Jehudi, which gives you the 7 universal laws, representing the masculine law, the masculine energy. And then you had the representation of Ma'at, which represented the feminine energy. And it also composed the 7 cardinal, the 7 virtues or 7 principles of Ma'at. And it was understood clearly from ancient Egyptian teaching or ancient Kemetic teaching that the feminine energy was considered to be of high regard and high respect, and that the universe and everything that existed was held together and held in check by Ma'at, representing the feminine principle. All right, any other questions?
That's it for me at the moment.
All righty, I thank you all for your attention.
Thank you.
All right, y'all have a great week.
You too.
You too.
All right.
Thank you so much.
All right, people. Peace. To the next time.